I I love to talk about two things. One of them is football, especially Corinthians and Saprissa, and the second one is tapirs. And if I have the chance, I can spend the whole life talking about tapirs playing football. But today it's not going to be the case. Today I will talk only about this super photogenic animal, which is called a Baird's tapir or Central American tapir. And as Andres mentioned, I'm the executive director and founder of Costa Rica Wildlife, and we are a small NGO, a foundation based in Costa Rica, and we work on wildlife, but mostly trying to secure the prevalence of wildlife and secure the coexistence with communities. And that's our main goal. All of our action involves community. It's community based, and we're focused on species. So we have developed several programs around species conservation, from spider monkeys, on tigrinas, rodents, sawfish, quetzals, invasive species, and reforestation programs. And what we do is we target species through community-based programs based in key areas for biodiversity, especially in Costa Rica. One of them is the Talamanca mountain range, and as you can see below, that's all the international denominations that belong to Talamanca. Basically, it has everything a wilderness area can have. It's a UNESCO World Heritage, Man and Biosphere Ramsar Site, key biodiversity area, and it's one of the big 5 forests of Mesoamerica. So it's also a binational forest. Then we also work in Tenorio Miravalles Wildlife Corridor, which is in the north part of Costa Rica, and in the down south peninsula de Osa or Osa Peninsula. And the way we do conservation, it's through an interdisciplinary approach. So we try to work together through several disciplines, different professions, and all working together to tackle down threats. So we have everything from communicators, educators, biologists, vets, photographers, graphical designers, marketing experts, forestry engineers. So we all grab our expertise and work around that to save wildlife in Costa Rica. And what we aim is to reach integrative solutions. Basically, when I was in university, I was taught how to do research. And then when you go out to the world, you realize that conservation needs other tools like communication, education, marketing, law, and policy. And we try to take all of our challenges through all these components, not only research, not only education, but all of them interacting together. And basically, our main goal is make wildlife a priority. Right now, there's a whole set of priorities around the world, and biodiversity crisis, even though it's the #1 crisis the world's facing right now, and still, even with COVID, while biodiversity crisis is the biggest we're facing right now, and it's not considered a priority in a practical way. So that's what we do. And today I'm going to talk about tapirs, which is also my favorite animal. It's also probably the cutest animal on earth, and it's the reason I ended up studying biology and doing conservation. So this is a Baird's tapir. You in Brazil, you have the South American or lowland tapir, and this is another species that it's a little larger and it's a little more of a forest specialist, and it goes down from 0 meters above sea level by the coast up to 3,800 meters up in the Paramo vegetation. And just like the Brazilian tapir, tapirs have a super important role. They are completely herbivores, and they disperse seeds all around the forest. There's a lot of studies specifically from Brazil that show how they have a major role in forest restoration, in reforestation. And just some fun facts, it's related to rhinos and horses. And I don't know if you can listen to the sound, but this is how they make. Yeah, this is someone asked me before the talk, so I just added up there. And so birds tapir, they inhabit from Mexico down to the north part of Colombia and Ecuador. And right now, these are the ones shown in the map are the core areas where birds tapir are still have stable populations. It's considered threatened with less than 5,000 individuals surviving in the wild, and with all the populations declining. And not only the populations, but the main habitat, the core areas for birds tapir, are now decreasing. And just like the Amazon, the main reason is beef production, beef consumption. It's driving tapirs and other species to extinction. Aside from habitat loss, tapirs are suffering and facing other threats like poaching, fires, and roadkills or collision with vehicles in the roads. So when we see this scenario, something that I always go around and say to people, politicians and everyone, it's we're losing more than tapirs. When we're losing one tapir, we're losing millions of years of evolution. We're losing the access to essential services. And for a country like Costa Rica, having a forest engineer like tapirs in the forest means that we can have hydroelectrical power that is the majority of the electricity in Costa Rica. Costa Rica has been running with petrol-free energy, electric energy, for over a year, and that's like our world record. And also, Costa Rica is one of the countries of the world with better access to drinkable water. So that's all coming from forests. And look in the big picture, when we have tapirs and we have stable forests, we are allowing us to mitigate climate change and also preserve biodiversity. So tapirs have a major role, and we've been working around that, trying to understand how can we show politicians and how can we show investors the importance of these species. And so we came out with this paper, which is going to come out soon. And basically, we are highlighting the role of the core tapir areas around the country. For example, 93% of the hydroelectrical power of the entire country comes from forests that are maintained by tapirs. 80% of drinkable water, same for the metropolitan area, is the same. And I know that might sound like we are just stretching the conclusions a lot, but it's just a way to put it in a systems language, in a politic language where people can actually start valuing and understanding the values of these creatures. So speech we're using to conserve tapirs in Costa Rica is that tapirs are more than gardeners of the forest. They're much more than that. They are providers of human well-being. And when I started thinking about conservation and getting into biology, the first thing I started thinking about was becoming a biologist. And then I came across this quote from a Brazilian, from Patrícia Medici, that she was quoted, am I helping to save tapirs, or am I just documenting their extinction? And I remember when I saw that quote, I was camera trapping, I was getting super excited about math modeling and everything, all those valuable tools. But then I started turning myself into more of a conservation action kind of guy. And basically what I learned through I lived in Malaysia a little bit, and I learned that science is a great tool, but we need action. And what really, really confirmed me this was when I was in Malaysia, I was working with Rimba, an NGO from there, working with tigers. And finally, I was face to face to a bunch of threats. In Costa Rica, we have threats. They're visible, but not at the same magnitude as Southeast Asia. And then I came across this paper, which highlighted how many papers have been published around tigers. Still, over 10,000 papers have been published around tigers. And still, in the last 100 years, over the same time those papers were published, we have lost 93% of the populations, and their populations are still declining rapidly, and we're expected to lose them if we don't have a major change. So this really opened my eyes that if I wanted to save these guys, science will be a great tool, but I cannot still stay there. I should go and really work to stop threats. So that's our philosophy. That's our way of looking at conservation. We do a lot of science. We try to gather tools from all the different professionals we have, but we are working to stop threats. That's what we do. And in a country like Costa Rica, where you get tapirs roaming around roads, plantations, and pumas in the city, the only way to success doing that is through community-based solutions. So what does it mean working with communities? When we think about wildlife and conservation, we always think about a scientific paper. We always think about saving animals, about going out to the field, and everyone wants to be a biologist to be out in the field and save the animals. But then you realize that it's more complex. This is from Silvio Marchini. He's from USP as well. And when you're working with animals, it's in preparation. When you're working with animals, trying to save them, it's more complex, because in the end, it's a fight between human-driven threats and animal populations. So you can be on a side where the animal loses and the humans win, or you can be either in a side like conflict where both are losing. The animal goes and eats the crop, then the farmer takes retaliation actions. Or you can be in a scenario where populations get the benefits and humans are just not getting anything, like the old expropriation to establish protected areas we have in Costa Rica. So when I mention coexistence, what we want to achieve, we want to have that relationship where we have populations, both from humans and tapirs, winning. And it's kind of complex and not easy, but I think that's where we should be aiming. And one example of that is responsible ecotourism. So Costa Rica was able to move from that expropriation to establish protected areas up to some sort of coexistence, having families getting benefits out of having wildlife in their properties. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So it gets more complex when you look the interactions between humans, and that's conservation. You want people saving the animals, like rangers or government institutions or farmers willing to save the animals, and then you have poachers. We all have our own perception, our own feelings, and we do our own actions and our own behaviors. And that's a summary of how conservation look in a practical way. So what are we doing with tapirs, and where are we doing it? We're doing it all around the country and covering most of the populations, or the stable populations we have up in the north and in the south in Osa Peninsula. And in Talamanca Mountain Range, which is the highlands in the center of the country, one of the main threats, and basically what started Nãĩ Conservation, was tapir vehicle collisions. So in 9 years, we had 25 road kills of a single species, the largest species we have in the country, in only 28 kilometers. That's a high density of road kills, had never happened before. So we did some math modeling, we did some population ecology, we did some math modeling to predict the traffic speed and the traffic intensity and how likely it would be to crash with a tapir. And that was my master's thesis. And we found out that tapirs basically were crossing all around the road. There was no a single hotspot, only a couple of them that we pinpointed. But we decided to work with people because it seems like tapirs were not going to learn where to cross the road. You cannot teach them how to cross the road, but you can teach humans how to drive carefully. So we started working with truck drivers, with bus drivers. We worked with the government, with local communities, and we finally were able to deploy these signs and work a lot of communication around the country. And in the last 3 years, we have been able to reduce 90% the collisions. So in the last 3 years, we only had 1 collision after the signs. And before that, there were an average of 4 every year. Sorry, an average of 2.3 every year. And now we get reports every week that look like this. Just tapirs crossing the road. Every week, every day, and even with babies, as I show you before in this slide. There's one with baby. We get that every week. So it seems like those signs and all the community outreach we did, it's working. The second threat we're working up there, and it's probably one of the major threats historically and still goes on, it's poaching. It still happens in Costa Rica, even though it's completely forbidden, it's illegal, it still happens. And we've been working with poaching through a collaborative project, which is called the Gardeners of the Forest, with a government institution. Asana is leading the project, and it's financed by a debt swap between the US and Costa Rica. And we've been mapping and working with ex-poachers. Some of them still poach. And we're trying to find out where the animals are through camera traps, through interviews. We're also checking with them and making them the protagonist of the tapir conservation. So we created research brigades and monitoring brigades that they are now in charge of monitoring tapirs in the area. And the project has also other components where we are studying genetics to see how poaching and isolation have affected the genetic structure of the population of tapirs. That's Juan Carlos. He's doing his master's in the UCR. Then Lucia, she's an anthropologist. She's working around the human dimension, trying to understand what are the drivers for poaching and what can we do around the human environment to stop poaching. And then Nicole it's managing the education part, and Jose Ramirez is in charge of all the population ecology and deploying camera traps and all that. So it's a really integrative project. And what we're looking forward to, and we have examples of it. Here we have a tapir sleeping in a pond in a cattle ranch next to a forest, next to the Talamancas, next to Los Quetzales National Park. And the main question I always ask is, what is the tapir doing there? Everyone says they love water. Yeah, they love water, but there's more water up there in the forest. So the real answer, that tapir is right there because no one killed it. And that's it. Sometimes wildlife, all they need, it's no one killing it. And the farmer owner of this property, he has mentioned before that, like he used to chase tapirs with dogs and, like not happy of them being there. But now, 4 years ago, he stopped doing that, and now tapirs are mating in his farm. So this is something, if we control poaching, we can get this scenario. Another threat, Jorge, Juan Carlos, and Rocio have been working around. They are vets, and Juan Carlos is a geneticist. And it's the zoonosis risk. And part of it is there's a national park where community associations, they get profit out of there's tourists hiking 17 kilometers. So there's horses carrying their stuff. So there's horses coming in and out. It's community development, they need it. So what we've been doing through a study of antibiotic resistance that Jorge did, and through Rocio's study on parasites, it's give recommendations to the government agency in charge of protected areas. And now they have to have vet checks every time they're gonna renew the concession. So we make sure that horses are not carrying any parasite that might be harmful for tapirs, or horses are not carrying any parasite that they took from tapirs. So that's a way where some data, like from vet studies, can be turned into policy. And another area where we're working with tapirs, and it's probably I won't say my favorite, but it's where there's a lot of action going on right now. And I have to mention Vilmar. He's the real hero in this story, in this area. He's a tapir enthusiastic. He's the manager of Miravalles National Park. He's been a ranger for over 30 years. And he is a tapir. He loves tapirs. He dreams with tapirs. He organizes the community around tapirs. And here he was showing me his favorite picture. He was crying. And the first issue that he pointed out when we started working together 4 years ago was human tapir conflict. Basically, we're having tapirs raiding crops, getting losses over 40% of some cucumber and bean farms. And this was getting a problem. Can you imagine going to your bank account and you have 40% or 25% less of your salary, and then the guy in the bank tells you, well, you know, that happens, that's nature, it's a really cool guy, it's a gardener of the forest who's taking that from you, so chill, don't do anything. Well, that's pretty much us as conservationists when we go to communities and tell them that it's okay to let go a tapir, and it's okay, and it doesn't matter if a tapir eat your crops. And so we've been working with them to stop retaliation killing, retaliation chasing, and this is how it looks, those farms. So we have hotels with tapirs roaming around, orange plantations, cattle farms, bean farms, cucumber farms, with tapirs mating inside the farms and giving breed to even 4 generations. And this is just because those farmers have been able to accept and take measures to stop conflict or to mitigate conflict, to reduce the conflict around there. And something that we are trying to elucidate right now is the relationship with those farmers and the acceptability they have to have tapirs in their properties. And that's Sophie's research. Sophia, it's a researcher. She's doing trying to find out how likely, or what's the social connectivity in the corridor. That means how likely it's for a tapir to go from one national park to the other, going across private property. And Sebastián Alvarado, he graduated from USP a couple of months ago. He's working with the landscape ecology. So we're trying to match both the social connectivity with the functional and structural connectivity to see what finds out. Because right now, thank you to farmers, this is what's going on. We have tapirs. This is a pregnant tapir going across one of the orange fields and walking towards the other national park. That's Miravalles National Park, coming probably from Tenorio National Park, which is the other national park in the corridor. So basically, having a deep understanding of what's going on in the corridor will allow us develop better solutions with the community. And that's what's going on right now. People are accepting that tapirs can have a value in their community, and probably a tapir in their property, it's more valuable than a dead tapir in their property. So we've been learning from our Quetzal project, where we work with 23 farmers, and they get up to $8,000 a year in earnings just by having Quetzals in their farms. So we're learning from this program, and we're creating these tapir tours where we're encouraging farmers and working with them to to improve their production behaviors, to have a better attitude and behavior toward tapirs, and also to develop a structure to have private tapir tours, so they can make money to compensate for the conflict, and they can have money that can actually provide for a community in a friendly way with tapirs. So we're working around this. Now we're in the stage on developing produce with added value, like something like tapir-friendly crops. And this is just examples of how tapirs go around those farms. This is the Tapir Natural Reserve in the Hideaway Hotel. This is Tapir Valley, and it's now under fully restoration, and we've seen a lot of tapirs there. And this is Bihagua's Paradise Spring. This is just 50 meters away from the road, and this is what we're getting now. And the most amazing thing about this community in the Corredor Biológico Tenorio Miravalles is that they have organized themselves as with their tapir festival that has been going on for 3 years now. This year is going to be the 4th tapir festival. If you want to come, if the borders are open, I invite you to come. And what the festival is about community celebration around tapirs. So we have the elderly people telling their stories, the seniors telling our stories about tapirs, telling how they used to share with tapirs, how they used to hunt them, and how they want to see them back. We also sign agreements with the government. Last year, we signed an agreement that we are committed to work directly for tapir conservation with the government. And there's also a chance for young people and kids from schools to get involved with tapir conservation. These are the kids from the ecotouristic high school, and they're learning how to guide around tapirs. So this festival, it's great because it's 2 weeks celebrating tapirs. So basically, yes, what we're trying to do is use tapirs as an engine for development. And what does that mean? I always complain when we conservationists, we use development itself as a threat, because I think that scares people. Like we're trying to keep, we from the cities are trying to keep people away from the benefits we enjoy in the cities. So we always say, oh, development is a threat. No, we can switch the language and we can switch the way we're addressing conservation and turn wildlife as an engine for development. And that's what we've been doing, showing that, you know, a tapir can be worth a lot of money, especially in an ecotouristic based country like Costa Rica. I'm gonna talk about the effects of COVID in a little bit. But there's a lot of lessons in over 25, 30 years of ecotourism that wildlife can actually become an ally for development, not only for local people, but for small brands and local craft products that actually provide and help us conserve tapirs, like tapir chocolates. And there's a lot of examples on how wildlife can be, and tapirs specifically, we're using them to be an engine for development. And none of this makes any sense if we don't aim for long-term and stable programs to secure coexistence. And Costa Rica is full of extinct conservation projects. And, you know, like we have a 2-year program, it stops, community goes back to where they were before. There's no contention or long-term plans. And I think that's conservation all around the world. So we've been working with producers and other people trying to create a long-term and stable programs. And part of that, it's having an official education program that's managed and developed by Nicole, and working around communities, especially into the formal education system and non-formal as well, to prepare them to understand wildlife and see not only the ecological value, but also the value to develop around them. And we're also encouraging, and this is Ellie and her sister Kira are one of the main researchers we have in the corridor. They deploy camera traps, they're in charge of camera traps. So we're encouraging people, local people, also to be part of the research. And I believe that a country like Costa Rica has a lot of, like, probably its main asset, it's their people, including professional producers, everyone. So that's something we're trying to highlight in those communities where probably the opportunities of doing research or biological research is not as easy as in the city, but they have all the natural resources there. So that's something we've been pushing through Costa Rica Wildlife and Nãĩ. And also politics. Politics matter when you're doing conservation. You can have a long-lasting program. If you do not translate that into policy, you probably wasted a lot of time and money. So the one in the left, that's Carlos Manuel Rodriguez. He's the Minister of Environment of Costa Rica, and he's one of the most influential people around the world in climate and biodiversity policy. And he's a really good ally of us. He's been helping us develop programs. translating action into policy, and also his favorite animal are tapirs. He even has a surfboard with a tapir on it. So it's great to have politicians and like engage politicians into wildlife conservation, because that's a way to create long-lasting rules for the future. And none of these matters also if you do not collaborate. So I do not believe in individuals doing stuff that won't last long. Conservation cannot rely on individuals. It should rely on programs. It should rely on groups of people in collectives. So a couple of years ago, sorry, we came around. There's groups like the Tapir Specialist Group. We've been working together, and then we decided to take that to a more specific level inside the TSG, and created an alliance to take action plans into action through the whole Central American region. So basically, everyone who's been working, or most of the people who've been working with tapirs in Central America, we came together under the Bird's Tapir Survival Alliance, fundraised together, and started developing conservation action to stop the threats in probably 100% of the distribution range of the species and most of the core areas. So basically, we're learning from each other. We're trying to hold ourselves together and increase the impact of our conservation action. And all this to take you back to something that I want you to take away. I want you to remember tapirs as a synonym for well-being. And it's hard to think about human well-being related to a species or to wildlife. I think we were not taught to think like that. But I have witnessed, and I'm sure in Brazil and in other countries, there's a lot of examples when we can highlight this. And I'm going to show a couple of pictures. This one is from 11 years ago from Tenorio National Park. These kids, most of them, they were enjoying the moment. It seems like not this one, but he was. These kids, they were 10 years old. Now they're 21. 2 years ago, they share a talk on how meaningful this moment was. The moment of face-to-face to the largest neotropical mammal changed their lives. Now the three of them, they work in ecotourism. They are passionate about wildlife, and this moment had a lot to do. So I think everyone should be allowed to enjoy these kind of moments. And probably the most powerful picture for hope around the work we're doing and other people in Costa Rica is doing is this picture. This is the daughter of a former poacher. He stopped poaching, and I remember when I was a kid, I used to put handguns to every bird or squirrels, just because I saw TV and I wanted to do that. But this little girl, she grew up with her dad, who's now he's now passionate for bird watching. So she grew up holding binos all the time. So when she saw this tapir, her natural reaction was not pulling out a gun, was just pretending she had some binos to look at the tapir. And for me, this is probably the summary of hope from all the talk, like people changing their behaviors, translating those behaviors into their offspring, and changing generations. And right now we're facing a pretty tough moment for humanity, especially for people who rely on tourism, like Costa Rica. A lot of communities changed their way of living. They switched poaching and logging to turn into ecotourism, and now they're having zero earnings. And that's a huge challenge, because when we have people working in ecotourism, we have people vigilant of what's going on in the forest. So poaching, they are not happy with poachers. They're not happy with threats, because that's messing with their source of income. So right now it's uncertain, but still we've been in touch with them. We've been collaborating. We've been trying to put together, to hold us together. And as a strategy for that, we just released a fundraise campaign that I don't know if you'll be able to listen to this to the audio, but if not, there's a link to it that I'm gonna share.
The Central American tapir is an ecologically vital species. However, they face a wide variety of threats, and today there are fewer than 4,500 adults remaining. Costa Rica Wildlife Foundation, CRWF, through its project Nãĩ Conservation, is dedicated to finding lasting solutions for tapirs and humans in Costa Rica. Their efforts are working. Tapir road collisions have decreased by 90%. Responsible ecotourism partnerships with farmers now cover 5,000 hectares. 400 school children have participated in the Save Tapirs educational programs. Beginning on Tapir Day 2020, CRWF is launching a month-long campaign to raise $5,000 for this critical work. With the ongoing pandemic, this is a difficult time for the world, but conservation must continue, and CRWF is committed to leading the way for tapirs.
So yeah, if you want to learn more about how to help our programs, Costa Rica Wildlife .org/donate, and then you can find out more about the campaign. And basically, the takeaway message I want you guys to take away is that protecting tapirs is more than just saving an endangered species from extinction. It's maintaining the forest stability, preserving sources of water, protecting the right of local communities to develop sustainably, and as a summary, it's just increasing human well-being itself. So pretty much that's what I want everyone to take away to their houses. These kids, they understood it perfectly. They committed themselves to take care of tapirs. They understood that tapirs eat a lot of vegetation, that they poop, and there's trees coming out of that forest that will keep them happy and alive as humans. So thank you very much for your attention. I would like to recognize our supporters and also mention some of my mentors that have to do a lot on what I'm doing right now. That's Dr. Ruben Clements from Malaysia, Dr. Shima Assis from Malaysia, Silvio Marchini from Brazil, Bernal Rodriguez from Costa Rica, and Rodrigo from Mexico. They have a lot to do with what I do and what I am right now as a professional. So thank you very much to them. And thank you very much to you. If you want to contact us, if you want to contact me, please do and go ahead. And thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Esteban. Well, it's great to see how much this project has grown. I remember seeing you selling T-shirts a few years ago just to get money to take the bus and go to the places where you were doing your master's. So this is great. So congratulations. And now we have 20 minutes for questions. So if you have questions, please put your name here, send a message here in the comments, and you can open your mic and ask yourself. So go ahead. Questions? Okay, well, I have the first question, and I want to know, do you have any experience? What's like the most fulfilling experience that you have had while working with people? Like, I don't know.
I think that it's hard to pinpoint one experience, but I think, people feeling proud of seeing wildlife in their properties, and like when you get to see that your work is actually bringing benefits to local people, and like they see conservation and research as a source of hope for change. I think that's the most fulfilling part of it. But I think there's a lot of moments when I kind of stop down. It's kind of hard to slow down and check what you have done, look back. And but I would say that one, yeah, like, like see people getting benefits and being proud of being part of conservation and themselves leading the conservation, even more when they have had behaviors that are not so wildlife friendly before.
Okay, thank you. Another question here.
Hello, Esteban. Great talk. Nice work that you've been doing all these years. I want to ask, like, if you have a. So the project's been for 3 years already. 4, from what I was 5.
5.
So, did you from all this time, do you have data on the population size? Has it continued to decline? Have you seen improvements? Like you've got data from killing, so you reduced the amounts of deaths from the car crashes. But do you have information on population itself? And when thinking about the conflicts, like associated to that question, when thinking about the conflicts and the problem about poaching, if you think that land is being taken, is it being used for cattle production and beef? Do you think eventually, if populations get to grow to a point where like poaching would not necessarily be a problem, could be incorporated in this social development of the communities? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, yeah, the second one is a tricky question. I'm gonna address it. Thank you for your question and thank you for the comment. Yeah, so we do have a lot of data. We have around three years of data of camel traps. Right now, we just retrieved around 167, I think, from the highlands, and we are about to deploy some camel traps to deploy some cameras in the corridor. So population size, we haven't measured, done any capture, recapture, or we haven't done any like population size itself estimation. We have a collaborative paper with Cody Chang, led by Cody Chang, that he estimated the population for the whole Central American and Mesoamerican region. But what we have data on its occupancy and just comparing occupancy before and now. We are now on the task of comparing 2016 and 2020. We're analyzing that data, but pretty much we have some reports that highlighted tapirs as a extinct, locally extinct from some of the places that we're getting a lot of registers right now. One of them is the Nãĩ Conservation wildlife corridor, and the other indicator of population recovery, it's roadkills. Before 2010, there were 0 roadkills of tapirs up in the mountains, and that responds probably to 40 years of successful national parks. It takes a while before all the changes that happen in policy and economical development in Costa Rica started to get to be seen through wildlife, especially for large species. So we are in the task of getting that data out. Jorge right now, he's doing his PhD in Georgia, and he's gonna color some tapirs and gather some genetic information. Juanca, it's identifying the genetic structure of the population, and we will be able to estimate how many tapirs there are in the Talamancas. Sadly, there's no starting point data or previous data to compare, but we are on the task. And the second one, that's kind of tricky, especially for the role or the way poaching is seen in the country. It was declared illegal in 2015, and since ecotourism, it's like the strongest tool for economical development in the country, poachers, they hide away, and not even like killing a rat or anything, it's seen with good eyes here. So I don't think that would be an option for Costa Rica. In indigenous territories and in some areas around Mesoamerica, it's legal, and especially for people with super low income, that's something that happens, and that's another reason to protect tapirs, so that people have sources of protein. But I don't see that happening in Costa Rica as a whole.
Thank you.
I think one of the solutions in conservation, it's reconsidering diet instead of aiming to kill other animals. I think reconsidering plant-based diets and all that, I think they work, and that's something we should be, as conservation organizations, be targeting for also.
Okay. Okay, does anyone else have a question? Wait.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Okay. It says, do your academic conservation efforts can gain power by dialing to policymakers? I'm not sure if it's my impression, but here in Brazil, it seems hard for scientific facts to get to this level of action due to our increasing conservative governors. How do you think we can improve that talk? That's a really good question. So Costa Rica, the last two governments, we have had like really easy ways to approach the government. They are really interested in talking and developing conservation and, you know, like using data, especially right now. I think Carlos Manuel Rodriguez is a really good minister and he listens to scientists. We saved ourselves from a super conservative government. I don't know how the scenario would be, and I can imagine that's the case for Brazil. I think one of the strategies, and I know that there's people in Brazil doing it, it's translating the data into policy language, you know, like economical language. But the hard thing, and something that changed the game in Costa Rica, it's now a hectare full of forest and wildlife means more money than a hectare with 2 cows. And in Brazil, that's not the case. Beef production and deforestation still an increasing business. And I think that's something that's causing and makes it harder to reach out and change policy. But I know there's really good people, Patricia, I know Fernanda, Mariana. There's a lot of people working with tapirs there. The guy, Tapir, it's another group working with tapirs. And I know they have been reaching out to politicians. I don't know, to be honest, what's the context. But my advice, and something that I have spoken with Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, it's if the market of having forest, it's not meaningful compared to the other destructive production alternatives, it's super hard to work. And Costa Rica is working super hard to make it more profitable to have forests than to not have forests.
Okay. Any more questions? I just wanted, now that you mentioned Patricia Medici, I just wanted to say that she won an important award yesterday with her work, Tapirs.
Yeah, with the, yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if there are not any more questions, I think this is the end. No? Thank you very much, Esteban. It was very nice to hear about the project and you. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So, okay, so everybody is welcome for the next week. We're gonna have another EcoEncontros meeting. It will be the same link, so we will keep on.
Yeah,
we will give you information. Okay. Thank you very much, Esteban, and thank you all. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and please do contact us. Any question you arises during the night or during the day, just let us know. Send us an email, a Twitter message, or whatever. And yeah, see you soon. And if you want to help us or be part of tapir conservation, remember to donate and to let us keep on doing what we're doing. Thank you very much.